Fellowship Baptist Church and to the fellowship and to the worship of our church. So in the past few weeks, I'm going to change things up a little bit here. It's listed that we would sing a song first, but I'm going to do my welcome first. The last few weeks we've been talking as pastors going through Ecclesiastes about the need to stretch ourselves and to soar like eagles. A couple weeks ago he said it's better to soar like an eagle than run around scratching the ground like a prairie chicken. So the whole issue that we're going to talk about today is that if you're going to soar like an eagle, at some point in time, after you've hatched and you've grown some feathers and you've developed some strength, you have to leap out of the nest. And normally eagles' nests are pretty high, so there's a certain amount of risk associated with leaping out of a nest, being pushed out of a nest, kicked out of a nest, something. Some way or another you develop the skill to soar like an eagle. Once you've soared like an eagle, you don't want to end up scratching around the ground like a prairie chicken, because you've had that experience, that exhilaration. And we've talked about that in our men's group on Thursday nights, about what's it like to live a life that's got a bit of risk associated with it. Well, when you have some risk in your life, there's always a possibility you're going to have something that didn't go the way you expected it to be. And you might have some regrets. But you need to live life in a way so that you can look back at those things only for the purpose of redirecting yourself forward and saying, don't make that mistake again. And we talked a little bit in our men's group about the influencers in our lives, those who had put us on a certain trajectory that gave us the permission to do something, or no, be careful, don't do that. So Layne talked about his mother being that way and his father saying, oh yeah, go ahead, take the gun out and shoot whatever you want, just don't kill any, those kinds of things. And I expressed that my parents were a little different. My dad allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do. And my mother, rather than cautioning me, said, go finish doing that, go do that. So she was a risk pusher. So sometimes you end up with those kind of people in your background, and it causes you to soar at a different level. So I want to welcome you all to Fellowship Baptist Church. I want to begin with a word of prayer and then turn to, if you want to sing the parts, hymn number 1 in our hymnal, and we will sing together. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that you've given us, the opportunity to praise you, to thank you for all that you do in our lives, for the folks that have pushed us and influenced us. And Lord, we just pray that we can learn from those experiences to soar in the way that you would want us to, that we could glorify you in the way that we live our lives. And Lord, we just thank you for these things. In Jesus' name, amen. Hymn number 1, Joyful, Joyful.
Would you stand with us as we continue singing?
Raging at my feet, can feel the breath of those surrounding me. I can hear the sound of nations rising up. We will not be overtaken, we will not be overcome. I can walk on this dark and painful road, can face every fear of the unknown. I can hear all God's children singing out. We will not be overtaken, we will not be overcome. The same power that rose Jesus from the grave, the same power that commands the dead to wake, lives in us. Lives in us. The same power that moves mountains when He speaks, the same power that can calm a raging sea, lives in us. Lives in us. He lives in us. Lives in us. We have hope. His promises are true, His strength. There is nothing we can't do. Yes, we know there are greater things in store. We will not be overtaken, we will not be overcome. The same power that rose Jesus from the grave, same power that commands the dead to wake, lives in us, lives in us. The same power that moves mountains when He speaks, the same power that can calm a raging sea, lives in us, lives in us. He lives in us, lives in us. Greater is He that is living in me. He's conquered our enemy. No power of darkness, no weapon prevails. We stand here in victory. The greater is He that is living in me. He's conquered our enemy. No power of darkness, no weapon prevails. We stand here in victory. Oh, in victory. Same power that rose Jesus from the grave, the same power that commands the dead to wake, lives in us, lives in us. The same power that moves mountains when He speaks, the same power that can calm a raging sea, lives in us, lives in us. He lives in us, lives in us, lives in us, lives in us. He lives in us, lives in us. You may be seated.
Our sermon text for this morning is Ecclesiastes chapter 11, beginning in verse 7. And we're going to read through chapter 12 and verse 8. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 7 through chapter 12 and verse 8. It's found on page 478 in the Sanctuary Bibles right in front of you, if you would like to read along. We're going to read this together. I'm just going to open the floor and just give you the opportunity to, right where you are, just raise your voice and let's begin reading, as we often do around here, with Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 7. This is actually week number 20 in this sermon series through the book of Ecclesiastes, through this piece of wisdom literature. And we're down the home stretch. I won't finish it next Sunday, but the following Sunday, I hope to. Next Sunday, don't forget, we'll be up here on the back lot, up on the plain part of our properties here, and we'll be worshiping outdoors. Bring a camp chair, bring a folding chair. You can look there in your bulletin. It says we're going to be singing and praying and praising and just having a tremendous time up there. John also put in the bulletin that there will be a really good sermon by Pastor Sumner. Well, that kind of sets the bar high, I must admit. So I'm going to try to raise my game and really have something very special for you on next Sunday up on the back lot, the worship on the plain next Sunday. But let's begin reading. Ecclesiastes 11:7. Someone take off from there and we'll read through chapter 12 and verse
8. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However, many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all. But let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. Be happy, young man, while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things God will bring you to judgment.
Verse 10.
So then banish anxiety from your heart, and cast all the troubles off your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them, before the sun and light, and moon and stars grow dark, and the clouds return from after the rain. When the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease, because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim.
Verse 4.
When the doors to the street are closed, and the sound of the grinding fades, when men rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When men are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags himself along, and desire no longer is stirred. Then man goes to his eternal home, and the mourners go about in the streets.
Someone close the verses 6 through 8.
Remember him before the silver cord is severed, or the golden bowl is full, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring, or the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, teacher, everything is meaningless.
Would you stand with us again? One, two, three, four.
Greater is the one who's in us. Greater is the one who calls our name. He will never fail. Stronger is the one within us. Stronger is the one who fights for us. He will never fail.
morning, sermon's titled No Regrets. What would you give to go back in time, knowing what you know now, and have the opportunity to do things differently? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever considered that? Well, don't dwell on that question too long, for not only can it be depressing, but it's also the kind of question that sometimes prompts people to do rash, sometimes irrational things in order to try to maybe in some ways undo the past or at least correct the current state of their lives. And we call that regret. Regret. Regret can be a motivation to for present consequential actions. But I would also suggest that regret can be motivation for positive things, for beneficial actions and good life strategies, but not by looking at past regrets from our present perspective, which is what we usually do, but instead by projecting ourselves in some sense, or at least trying to place ourselves into our future and look back at our present lives. Here's what I mean. This morning, I would like for you to ask yourself this question. How can I live in the present so that when I'm in my future, I will have no regrets? If you could kind of fast forward your life to its twilight years, and for some of us that won't take very long, but if you could kind of fast forward your life into your twilight years, what would you do today so that you will have no regrets then? See what I mean? How can we live today for a future of no regrets? In our text for today, that is the teacher's method. He takes us to our twilight years, our future years of decline and diminishment, and he exhorts us to live today in view of that time. Our future can, and I would suggest our future should, shape our present. Our future can and should shape our present. In short, our future decline should impact our present delight. Forget about the past. We all have those kinds of regrets about decisions and strategies of the past, maybe some youthful indiscretions. Forget about those. Just put those behind you. You can't do anything about them anyway. Instead, be concerned about something that is within your power to actually affect, and that is the present. Because if we work positively in the present, regrets from our past will sting less in the future. See what I'm saying? How then can we live today for a future of no regrets? Well, the teacher dives in on that issue. And he gives us 5 very strong words of advice. 5 words of advice if you would like to have a future of no regrets. And this is the wisdom of God. First of all, the first good word of advice, and you can follow this outline, it's there on the back of your bulletin, follows here up on the screen as well. The first word of advice is recognize your mortality. That's where you need to begin. Recognize your mortality. The teacher has been kind of hitting at this little theme all the way through Ecclesiastes to this point. And he tells us here in verses 7 and 8 that life is a joy. It's a joy in and of itself. The good times of life, they are sweet. And the teacher characterizes them as light. And he says light is sweet. And within us all is the propensity to enjoy the good times, the happy days of our lives. The eye is pleased to see the light of the sun, the teacher says. And that's something we all know about here. We've had some sunny days lately. And we can all remember not too long ago those extended periods of dark and when the sun went down very early in the day. We remember that, don't we? And so we know that. The eye is pleased to see the light of the sun. Life is meant to be a joyful experience, and it is meant to be enjoyed. It is a gift from God. Happiness is to pervade every year of our lives throughout our entire lives. And our goal, according to verse 8, if you look there at our text in chapter 11 and verse 8, is to enjoy them all. To enjoy all of our years. I once heard Chuck Swindoll say, it's okay for us to be fundamentalists at heart, just so we don't start looking like one. You know? It's like the old preacher joke. Lady in line at the grocery store noticed a very somber and well-dressed gentleman standing behind her, and so she asked the man, "Are you a minister?" And he said, "No, I've just been sick lately." Where did we get the idea that life was meant to be endured instead of enjoyed? How did we ever come to equate spirituality with sourpuss somberness? Where did we get that idea? I think one of our goals here at Fellowship is we're out to put the fun back in fundamentalism. And we're also want to emphasize the mental part of fundamentalism and do away with the duh. But we certainly want to put the fun back in fundamentalism. The teacher's encouragement here for us is to enjoy every single year that God gives you. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. But do that with the realization that in the sweetness of life's light, there will be some dark days. Some of those times of tough adversity that come our way, sometimes they're minor. My lift station at my house went out yesterday. I called Jim the plumber this morning, and he's coming tomorrow. But that's an inconvenience. That is a minor darkness. My iPad over there this morning quit working. Glad to have my backup. But minor inconveniences of life. But there will be dark days. And we should enjoy life, but do that with the realization that there will be dark days. And there will be many. Unfortunately, sometimes those dark days are much, much more serious than a lift station, pump, and an iPad. Sometimes those include disaster. Sometimes disease. My good buddy Jim Boffman over here at Bethel Baptist over in Pierceton is really struggling with this cancer right now. That's a big dark day. That's a big one. And sometimes those dark days even include death, and we all experience those. But more likely, the teacher here has something else in terms of darkness that he's talking about, and that is he begins to talk about old age. It's a time that begins sometimes in one's 40s when that check engine light comes on. And it comes on, let me tell you. And the light of youth begins to diminish. And that continues right until the degenerative days even preceding our deaths. And the teacher's been talking about this to us all along. And he hits it here again at the end. You know, you don't have to get too far into midlife before you realize that you're going to have to make some adjustments. That it's going to be a period of adjustment and adaptation in the way you've always lived life, and even alteration in the way that you've lived life. You begin a season of life that requires adjustment to certain physical and sometimes emotional changes. You begin a time in life when it requires adaptation to some limitations, fewer options maybe. I was out planting a bunch of stuff yesterday, and I'm feeling it today. You know, didn't used to, am now. And can't go all day. I got to sit down. I got to take a rest every now and then. You know, part of it. Sometimes it requires us to alter our life goals and our life pursuits and maybe the expectations that we've had of ourselves all along. And that's no fun, especially when you begin to realize those things for the first time. Consider your mortality. And that's meant not to make us panic, but instead it should make us purpose. Purpose to make the most of every single moment of life, every single day of life, every single year of life that we get. Enjoy life as much as you can while you are most able to do so. That's the message the teacher gives us here in these opening verses. George Bernard Shaw once said, "Youth is a wonderful thing. It's a shame to waste it on young people." And let me tell you, young people, prove him wrong. Prove him wrong. Don't waste the precious gift of life that you have been given. Make the most of it. And those of you who are middle-aged, and some of you are you're lying to yourself, you know. If you're not going to live, 55 is not probably middle-aged because you're not going to live to be 110. So let's just kind of back it back a little bit, right? But you kind of know, middle age, don't panic in the present when you begin to realize those things are fleeting. Instead, purpose to make the most of every single day. Within rational limits, be open to every prospect. And you who are in life's twilight, present company included, I get to sign up for Medicare next year. Don't idolize the past. And don't be bound by your limitations in the present. Stay as healthy as you can. Do what gives you joy as much as you can, as long as you can. Our future diminishment and death, it's as certain as the sunrise and the sunset. We lost 3 of our church members within 6 weeks at the beginning of this year. 3. It's as certain as the sunrise. But don't let that fact depress you. Let that fact motivate you to enjoy, to make the most of life in the time that God has given you. Make the most of it. And if you do this, you'll have no regrets in the future at life's end. That depends on what you do in the present, how you approach the present. The second guiding idea for a future of no regrets, second word of advice the teacher gives us is number 2, pursue your delight. Pursue your delights. There's an old saying in the Talmud that reads, "Every man must render an account before God for all the good things he beheld in life and did not enjoy." Be happy. Let your heart give you joy, reads the Talmud. Are you happy? Are you happy? If not, why not? Why not? Maybe you lived under parents who insisted that you get serious, real serious about life while you were still very young. I've been told that I was more serious about life at age 12 than I am to this day. But, the problem with at middle age, you've been so serious about life for so long, you feel like an old person while you're still in your prime. And that's not good. That's not good. And to make matters worse, sometimes we think that every young person should get so serious about life as early as possible that we even insist upon it from our own children. Why do we do this? I'm beginning to think that being too serious about life may be overrated, especially at such a young age. Get out there and pursue what delights you. Pursue what delights you. Find a passion if you don't have one. Discover what excites you. What is it that gets your blood pumping and your heart pounding? And go get it. Pursue it. Young people, don't be in a hurry. Don't be in too big a hurry to become a taxpayer, and trapped by all of life's responsibilities and imprisoned by everybody's expectations and burdened by a growing number of creditors. Don't get in a hurry for that. Mooch off mom and dad as long as you can get away with it. That's the joke. Don't be in such a big hurry. Don't be in such a big hurry. Get an education that'll give you opportunities, and then go out there and give something back to the world. But don't just work. Take the time to do those things that get your blood pumping. You know? Get out there, whatever. Do some surfing, do some mountain climbing, do some trail hiking, do some distance running, do some skydiving, whatever that may be. Develop a hobby that interests you. Learn to knit, learn to make furniture, you know? Go fly fish. And if you can't do anything else, I guess you could go golf. For our guests and those of you who are watching online, here in our church, our golfers and fishermen have a kind of a running thing at each other. You know? And guess which one I'm in. But what I'm saying is pursue your delight. Pursue your delight. If you're one of those like me already trapped and burdened in those imprisoned taxpayers with a mortgage, what do? Well, the truth is the same for us. It's the same. Pursue what delights your heart. It might be less dangerous than things like skydiving and the like. It may be more serene at this stage in your life than it used to be. It may include an antacid and an Advil afterwards, like me yesterday planting trees. Just took the Advil last night because I knew I was going to need it. You know? It may be all of that, but pursue what delights your heart while you have the time to do it. Doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. And if your Zimmer knee doesn't work very well anymore, at least not until noon, and if your teeth spend the night in the glass next to your bed, and if delight comes for you just from a good bowl of soup and a nap, well, enjoy that bowl of soup and take that nap. Whatever it is that delights you, pursue it. Push the grandkids in the swing if you can do that. Go fishing or go shopping with your kids. Read literature you enjoy. Have friends over for dominoes. Go see the Colts or the Cubs or the Pacers play. Serve in your church. Take a mission trip if you're able to. In recognition of your mortality, pursue your delight. One of the things, I wouldn't have Facebook, honestly, if I couldn't watch my friends, my family, and my church family do the things that they enjoy in life. You know? Really, you know, I love seeing the pictures of Morgan graduate. I didn't want to go sit out in the heat the other night to watch her, and I'm sure tickets were limited as they usually are. But I enjoyed the pictures of that very special moment in her life, don't you? And all of those things, and you know, the guys at the races last week, and all the pictures and the things that I see, and the LeMasters, the most interesting people on earth, whatever they're doing, in some part of the world, it's interesting, and I enjoy the pictures. Couldn't do it myself, but I love living vicariously through them, right? Whatever it is in your life, whatever you can do, pursue it. Pursue your delights. That's what the teacher tells us. Third word of advice, and this follows on the heels of pursue your delight, and that is consider your judgment, though. When you're out there pursuing your delight, you got to think about judgment, about consequences. This is wisdom literature, remember? And we see that in the B portion of verse 9. Look there with me. You who are young, be happy while you're young. Let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see. And here's where judgment comes in. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. You know, our heart's delights have to be tempered by the reality of God's justice. There are consequences sometimes in pursuing our delights. Follow the ways of your heart, whatever your eyes see. But, here's the kicker, know that for all these things, God will bring you to judgment. Joy must be tempered by judgment. Passion and prudence must police our pursuits, in other words. Our hearts are to hunger for holiness. And if you want a future of no regrets, joy follows the paths of righteousness. If you want a future of no regrets, hear me, young people, joy only follows the paths of righteousness. Learn this. Learn this. There's an old English expression. You don't see it much in literature anymore. It's called after wretchedness. After wretchedness. It speaks of sometimes the ruining of one's life as a result of youthful foolishness. And we all know people, young people, you probably have friends whose lives have been ruined by foolishness, or at least altered by foolishness in their youthful pursuits. After wretchedness. And there are many, many people who live daily with the results of the pursuits of youthful delights that were not righteous and did not consider God's judgment. You see, God doesn't insert this warning right here in verse 9 to ruin our good time. That's not what God's like. That's not who. God's not a killjoy. God inserts this warning because he loves us, because he's compassionate, because he knows that there are ways to live life that are not the paths of righteousness, that are consequential to us, that bring headache and heartache and sorrow. God is concerned that we not go wild, that we live unrestrained licentiousness, because there's no lasting joy in that kind of life strategy. There's no joy in living the party life. Living the party life, the music, the booze, the dancing, the porn, the drugs, the sex, the hormonal high of that party life, that is a context for ruin. I see it here in our community. For our guest, I'm the chaplain for both Warsaw Police and Fire here in Warsaw. I've been for about 12 years now. And I've been on a lot of scenes. DUIs, vehicular accidents. Sometimes seeing the emotional baggage of youthful sexual activity. Diminished capacity from drug use. The potential for date rape. Stupid acts that result in diminished capacity. The fun, quote unquote, fun of the party life that follows you right into the future. After wretchedness is that old English saying. After wretchedness. Officer Beam's not here. The Beams are out of town this morning along with half the church. Especially this half. So a lot of folks gone now that graduation and school's ended and all. But Officer Beam's not here. Captain Beam's not here. But you ask him. Ask any police officer. Ask any EMT, any medic. Just ask them what that kind of living often results in. Ask a counselor, who's dealing with married adults sometimes, whose marriages are struggling because of poor life choices, sometimes in their youth. Teens arrested for doing stupid things that were called harmless fun. Sometimes things that result in death. Ask me, I can tell you real life stories of heartache, some that had innocent beginnings that ended in tragedy. God does not want that kind of ruin and destruction for us, his children. And so God warns us. Keep in mind judgment. Keep that in the back of your mind while you're pursuing your delights. Keep in mind judgment. He wants us to consider the judgment, especially as we look to our future. Whether judgment in this life or beyond it or both. Young person, before you go out on that very first date, before you go to that after game party, before you pop the tab on that first beer, before you begin to passionately kiss that girl or guy, before you choose an unsaved life partner, remember God's warning of compassion. Consider your judgment. Consider your judgment. Don't have a future of regret because of a present indiscretion and sin. But that's not just for our youth. Husband, dad, before you make that midlife bonehead decision, and I've seen a bunch of them in my time, consider your judgment. Consider your judgment. Wife, mother, consider your judgment so that you don't do something you'll regret. Consider your judgment. And you know what? The elderly aren't even exempt. Before you speak, before you act, consider the judgment that is before you. You and I are going to die. That's not just from the Word of God and what the teacher has been saying to us. We see it all around us. It happens. You and I are going to die. Some of us sooner than others, probably. And we all have our own timeline. Recognize your mortality. Pursue your heart's delight. But do so in consideration of your coming judgment by God. Fourth guiding idea for a future of no regrets. This may be the tougher one. Eliminate your anxieties. Eliminate your anxieties. Anxiety is the enemy of enjoyment. Anxiety, worry, all rooted in fear, the enemy of enjoyment. It's a killjoy. The word translated anxiety here in the Hebrew text, it's also translated as vexation. And some of your older translations may even say that there. Vexation. That is a word we don't use much in modern day parlance. But it's a word that speaks of being distressed. To be distressed. Trouble, suffering, distress. These are not to dominate our spirits. They all come with a price to pay, even in our bodies, physically. But they are not to dominate the Christian's spirit. And we can't eliminate the factors of life that do that to us. We can't do that. The teacher's been telling us that all through this writing. We cannot eliminate the factors of life that vex us, that distress us, that trouble us, maybe even that cause us anxiety. We can't eliminate those, but we can control how we respond to those things. We can, I would submit to you, banish anxiety. We can cast off the troubles that come into our life. There are some things that we can do to prevent fear and worry and anxiety, to keep anxiety at bay. Let's talk preventively here. Preventatively. We can prevent it. And here's the primary way to prevent a vexation of your spirit due to adversity in life. It sounds so simple. In fact, sometimes people will say to us these words: trust God. Trust God. It seems trite sometimes even, especially someone that's really in the middle of something very, very heavy. But the primary way to keep anxiety at bay and prevent fear and worry is to build your faith. And the time to start building your faith is not when you're in the middle of the adversity. The time to build your faith is all throughout your life, so that when those big things come, they won't blow you out of the water. They won't totally rock your world. Build your faith. Grow in faith. That is the primary way to prevent us from feeling anxious. Faith. Faith is the antidote to to worry. Yes, that is a primary way, that is preventative when it comes to vexation of our spirit. But we can also take measures, some measures, remedial, while we are in the moment that is vexing, that is troubling our spirits. We can do things to remedy the present trouble and the anxiety. We can eliminate some physical troubles by making healthy changes in our life right now, so that we don't get to the end of our life and suffer from those things. But we can make changes right now. Maybe changes in our diet. Maybe changes in our activity level or some exercise regimen. We can eliminate some stress and anxiety just by making adjustments in our schedules or our life situations. There are things we can do remedially. You can't eliminate the source of the trouble, but you can learn to handle situations without anxiety and do that preventively by growing our faith, and remedially by adjusting life strategies, by reaching out to your support systems, your friends, your family, your church family, people who love you and people who want what's best for you and people who are committed to actively helping you. You can also do it by making practical changes in our lives, things we can control, schedules, activities. If you're one of those people that are stressed all the time because you can't say no to anything that comes along, learn to say no. Or at least not now, right? We can control those things that are troubling our spirits by learning how to respond to them. And you can do this. You can do this. Work on it. If it's something you're struggling with, I'd love to sit down and talk with you. Maybe we can brainstorm together. Maybe you can help me. But we can do this. Eliminate life's anxieties. The fifth and final word this morning. Final word of advice for a future of no regrets is remember your Creator. Remember your Creator. I'm not going to develop this point this morning. I'm going to preach this entire point next week as a sermon. We're going to focus entirely on this final point next week. What it means to remember your Creator. Of course, the teacher's not just talking about cognitive recall here. There's much more going on in those words, remember your Creator. And I want us to read, in closing, chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes, verses 1 through 8. To kind of get us to begin thinking about what this means, to remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Ecclesiastes 12, 1 through 8. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim, when the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint, when people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred, then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Remember him, speaking of the Creator. Remember him before the silver cord is severed, And the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring, and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Pick that up there next week. How do we guarantee a future of no regrets? Recognize your mortality. Pursue your delight. Oh, but consider your judgment. Eliminate your anxieties. And remember your Creator. That's how you do it. Pick it up there next week. For those of you who have joined us today by live stream, I want to say a very thank you, heartfelt thank you to you. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for making time for us to be here and to be with you. I think, again, a good portion of our congregation is probably watching on live stream today. But I'm glad you're here. And for those of you not members of our congregation, but that come in and check in and sit in with us on Sundays, we're so glad that you did. And if you have a need in your life, I'd love to have the opportunity to talk with you about that, maybe to pray with you, to chat with you. You can make an initial contact there on the screen in front of you. It's Pastor Layne at fellowship-warsaw.org. And we can make a contact there and maybe set up another way to talk more intimately. But again, thank you for coming. God bless you.